So you're a pilot?
I am. So welcome. We have another episode of Mod Bless America. Couldn't be happier than to welcome Clayton Anderson to the show tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
By the way, we were asking earlier if you preferred Clay or Clayton, you advised Clayton is your stage name. It tells you what demand this young man is in.
Yeah.
You're far too kind. Appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure. I get free dinner, don't I?
Yeah, you do.
Absolutely. That's only in the highest classes of place.
That is that's the pay for being on Mod Bless America.
Exactly.
Okay.
And stimulating conversation. But yes, in answer to your question, I am a pilot. Fly a King Air C-90. And
Nice.
it's the proverbial pride and joy.
Looks good. Where do you fly out of Lincoln?
Yeah, just out of Lincoln.
I missed that part.
So obviously you're an astronaut, you're a hero of America, all of that. Did you start off as a pilot?
Well, I had a private license I got during my attempts to become an astronaut. It was one of those things I always wanted to fly a plane. And then trying to become an astronaut, there are certain things you can do to enhance your viability, your candidacy. And so there was a small airport just to the west of our home in League City, Texas. Turns out it was owned by the brother of Osama bin Laden, and so it closed later.
Whoa. That's a whole backstory, isn't it?
I don't know anything about the backstory, but I just know that one of, that whole place is now.
He had a tribe of brothers, didn't he? And sisters, and
Yeah.
brothers, and mothers, and fathers,
and everything, right?
Yeah.
So I learned how to fly there and got my private license. I was just a CFI, thinking that I would use it to fly. I refereed college basketball, right? So my idea was I could fly to the games. We don't get paid much, but if I get my crew of 3 and we fly together and split the cost, blah, blah, blah. Well, back then they changed over and they said, well, instead of sending everybody from Houston, we're going to send a guy from Austin, a guy from Houston, a guy from Dallas.
Gotcha.
Well, then it made no sense to fly anywhere. And so most of these guys drove. And I was going to go to one game where I actually had a crew of 3, and the one guy's wife wouldn't let him fly with me. So,
what league did you ref in?
I did the junior college conferences in Texas and the Lone Star Conference, which was the biggest one. So I'm the only astronaut to ever officiate a men's college Division I basketball game.
Wow.
Yeah. So I did it 3 times, and then we all got fired, and that was it.
Wow. So let's go back. So
Sure.
You're from Texas.
No, you're from Lincoln. You're
I'm
from
from
Ashland, right?
Ashland. And then my job as an astronaut took me to Texas.
Gotcha.
So you said your attempts to be an astronaut.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that and what that entailed. And is that a lifelong dream of yours? And I think I've heard you speak that started early in your childhood, right?
Yeah. So I was 9 when I thought that I wanted to become an astronaut. We watched the Apollo 8 guys go behind the moon for the first time in '68. Well, my mother said I was 6 years old, and then we would discuss me becoming an astronaut, which I don't remember that part, but she insisted that we did. So it was a lifelong passion of mine. It took me a long time when I first was eligible to apply. I had a master's degree in 1983, but you had to have a master's plus a year of experience. Well, I didn't have a year.
What was your master's degree in?
Aerospace engineering. And bachelor's in physics from Hastings College, master's in aero from Iowa State. And then when I got my master's and graduated in May of '83, I started to apply to be an astronaut, but I was not really eligible. So that was year 1, and then I applied 15 times over 15 years and got rejected 14 times.
Wow.
And
so what kept you? 14 times, that's a lot of perseverance.
That's perseverance. Wow.
That's a lot.
Well, it's easy to apply. It's hard to get selected.
Okay, well, I understand.
So,
that after the 10th rejection,
yeah.
Did you ever get the reasons why?
No. So there's a certain process that goes. You put in your application. They send you a card and say, "We received your materials.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Stand by."
Yeah.
Well, it's the standby part. You got to get to the next level of the application process, which for me, I never did until year 13. And so prior to year 13, just before year 13, my wife and I said, hey, let's throw this away. We're not going to ever get picked to do this. So we had flown to Seattle, Washington to see other Ashland friend, Jeff Rakes,
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
who went west to
Yeah.
become a bazillionaire. And my idea was I would maybe have, through him, some contacts that I could go speak to some people about maybe getting a job with Boeing or with anybody that was up there in the Northwest. We had a great trip, but we didn't meet anybody or talk to anyone. We came back home, and the next day at work, I got a phone call, and they asked me to be interviewed to be an astronaut for the first time.
You were in Seattle at that time.
I was my kid come back.
Just come back.
And so here I'm sitting at my desk thinking, well, screw Seattle. I don't need to go to Seattle anymore. And I was excited to apply again. And I got interviewed in year 13, got turned down in year 13, but they said, hey, you had a decent interview, here's what we learned from you. Come back and try again. So I tried again the next year, but they didn't do a selection. And then the year after that, the 15th year, I got selected.
So was this 1998?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah. Then my 15th year was 1998. And I got interviewed and I, made it all the way to the end. And then when the announcement came out in June of 1998, I became an astronaut. And then I reported on August 24th of 98.
To Houston?
To NASA?
Yeah, I just changed buildings.
Gotcha.
So
I was already at NASA. I just parked my car in a different spot.
okay, so you worked for NASA.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Those years.
So all those years,
Mm-hmm.
right out of college, you got your dual master's degrees, and then you
Yeah.
went to work for NASA.
1983 on.
What was your
Wow.
function? What was your job
25
prior
years.
to being an astronaut?
So I was an engineer, and we worked on the shuttle program for the most part when I first started. And the group I worked with, the shuttle took up payloads and cargo and satellites and all that stuff, and that's what we worked on. How do we do that? And then I guess about 4 years into my career, NASA decided to reorganize, and they took a bunch of us and said, you guys, we need you to come over here and work in this organization. But to keep doing the same job you're doing, we're just going to move you guys over. And so when I got over to that side, nothing really changed much, but I got exposed to operations, not just analysis that I did as a baby engineer, right? I got exposed to operations, and it dawned on me pretty quickly that if I ever wanted to be an astronaut, I had to have some knowledge and some operational experience.
Right.
And so that's the best part about that move and that job was I got into a group and we did that sort of operational stuff. But then I got moved into management and I had people I was responsible for. And I thought, oh, shoot, I'll never be an astronaut because I'm a manager. But I was a good manager. So I was moving up the ranks at NASA Johnson Space Center. And it just so happened that in 96, I was a boss. And they said, hey, Clay, your job's going to change as a boss. You're still going to be a boss, but it's mostly paper pushing. So I said, well, I really don't want to do that. And I got an email that said, hey, we have an opportunity for someone. If you're interested, please respond that you're interested. And it was to run the Emergency Operations Center of NASA's Johnson Space Center, right? So to deal with security violations, terrorist threats, hurricanes, medical emergencies, fire, all that bad stuff.
The emergency stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as emergencies.
Yeah. And
The
so
bad stuff.
I put my name in as being interested, and then pretty soon I got a note that said, hey, you've been selected as this guy, which meant I was the only one that put in a note that said I was interested. And my wife and I talked over a weekend, and we said, let's turn it down. Well, I came into work Monday morning, and hey, you have a meeting at 9:00 with the head of Johnson Space Center to congratulate you on becoming of the Emergency Operations Center.
They already anointed you.
You're self-anointed.
So I went over and said, yes, sir. Thank you very much. It turned out to be the best move I could have ever made, I think. I love the job. I didn't know anything about the job. And so I had a lot of learning to do, but I also had all that mission operations experience,
Sure.
right? So a good emergency response team practices.
Right.
Right.
A lot.
And those guys never practiced anything.
Really?
So we took our simulation idea of mission operations, right?
Sure.
And we told these guys, we're going to simulate
Emergencies.
emergencies. And we started to do that. We did it on a regular basis. You could just see the enthusiasm and the holy crap, we've been doing this wrong the whole time. And everybody was moving forward, and things were just getting better and better and better and better. And it was just a really cool experience. Plus, I had to go around where NASA Johnson is located is a lake called Clear Lake, and there's a bunch of small communities around that lake, and none of them had emergency operation capability.
Oh.
And so what NASA had done at Johnson was to build a part of a building back then. Now they have a separate building, but back then it was part of a building where we outfitted it with computers and all the tools that people would need at all these communities. So if a hurricane hit, they could run to us and they could run the hurricane for their city through our emergency operations center, which was pretty forward thinking back then. And
almost like an outsourcing, but it was kind of community outreach
like
for the Johnson
community
Space
outreach
Center,
for
right?
Johnson
Right.
Space Center.
And we were a safe place, and they would be safe from a storm or an issue, right? A terroristic threat, all that good stuff. And so it was a fun job. I got to go around to these people. I got to go to city council meetings and talk to their city council. And had to get them to sign agreements that, hey, you'll partner with us. Here's an MOU that you're going to use our facility. And of course, subsequent to that, they all started to build their own. But they did learn that we got it. And as the biggest employer and the biggest driver within that little area, with all those chemical plants around,
Right.
If a terrorist decides to bomb somebody, it could be pretty ugly, pretty bad.
Yes.
So that got me exposure to people who thought I would make a good astronaut.
Oh, that's
So,
good.
so that's great. So what does make a good astronaut?
Jeez.
We can talk about other stuff.
You want the
Just-
fun
you're
answer or
You're
the
living
serious answer?
my dream. I grew up, I wanted to be an astronaut.
Well,
Still do.
I was going to say, Clayton, I mean, we're about the same age, and everybody who grew up in the 60s, they'd wheel the TV set into your grade school room, and you'd watch the Gemini or the Apollo. And I don't think there's anybody who's a particular age, probably 65 and over, who doesn't remember where they were on July 20th, 1969. I mean, it's just one of those dates that is kind of in everybody's mind. So what does it take?
Well, you have to be above average intelligence. You don't have to be a genius, but there are some that are geniuses. You have to be a good team player. It helps if you're a leader. It helps if you're a follower. It helps if you're a good communicator. And not all astronauts have all these qualities, even though they're astronauts. I'm big on integrity and morality, and there's a lot that don't have great integrity. It's a small percentage. And what I learned in my 15 years as an astronaut was I was exposed to a lot of that other stuff that kind of soured me a little bit
On the program?
The whole idea of what is a good astronaut. What's a real, true, honest, good astronaut? There are a lot of gamesmanship, a lot of game players.
A lot of politics?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of climbing, right? A lot of push this guy down so I can get higher. There was a lot of that, and that surprised me because I didn't expect that.
Right.
And
Thought it'd be everybody on their own merit.
yeah. And, I heard people say things like, well, I'll fly once because I'm going to get out of the way and let other people fly. That's pretty noble. But that's not what they did. They flew multiple times, and, and that's what it's all about, getting an opportunity to fly. Nobody wants to be an astronaut and not go to space.
Right.
Everybody wants to be an astronaut and go to space and keep going to space. And then others want to go to space and be commanders. And that's part of the gamesmanship that apparently I was not very good at playing. Because when I felt most of my career was keep your head down and keep coloring. And when I became an astronaut, I kept my head down and I kept coloring because I had to get a reputation where I would be assigned to fly. And when I finally got assigned to fly, I kept my head down, I kept coloring. And when I finally flew and I was in space and thought that here I am, I can help make changes for the better. And that didn't go very well for me. And part of it is, I'll give it my Nebraska heritage, right? I look for ways to make things better. And I'm a process guy. My brain's wired to look at process. And so I would see things that were obviously broken, and I would say something, and sometimes I didn't say it right because I was frustrated, right?
Yeah.
And when you get in that can in the sky with the people on the ground. The people on the ground don't like the guy in the can in the sky to yap at them. Right? That's part of the game that I failed to play, right? Is that I'm supposed to be nice. And here's a phone number. If you're ever mad, you call this person on this phone number and you yell.
But wait a minute, you're stuck in friggin' space.
Well,
I mean,
that was part
pardon
of
me, screw the guys on the ground.
Zero gravity.
I am in orbit up here.
And could be lost and gone forever,
right.
truly.
And I was away from my wife and I was away from my kids. And it was the first time that I'd ever done that. I was living with 2 Russians. And, I did feel occasionally very isolated. And when you're isolated and you get frustrated, the Russians didn't want to hear me yap. They didn't give a rat's ass about the American. And so I didn't have anyone except my wife to talk to let my feelings out. And so sometimes I let them out to the Mission Control Center team thinking, okay, if I come down on you guys for doing something stupid, then you ought to fix it so that you don't do something stupid for the next guy.
Called being on a team.
Well, that's what I thought, but I could have used a different tone of voice. I could have used, I tried humor and that didn't work out too well. I told them one day that, I'm a United States taxpayer and today was not a good expenditure of my tax dollars. Well, it gets the point across. It has a little humor in it, right? And maybe take the edge off, but that didn't go over well. And that was very frustrating. And it's funny. I did an experiment called journals, and that experiment was easy. It's like keeping a diary. And so whenever you felt like it, you could go in and type your thoughts on the day. They could be good, they could be bad, they could be whatever. And recently I got asked to do an event this coming October, and they wanted me to give them information about life in space. So I went back to that journal and I started rereading it again. And I thought, oh my God, I had forgotten a lot of it. Some of it was pretty ugly.
How many space missions? Now you were in space for 167 days
Total.
Total. That was total.
Wow.
How long at one time?
152.
152 days. Yeah,
Wow, 5 months.
Mm-hmm. And then
now
most
that
of that
has
was
to
with
be
2 Russians.
Is that with the 2 Russians?
Yeah.
That's
Did you call him frickin' frack?
No, that we had a good time. We kind of understood each other.
Meaning literally or emotionally.
Oleg was really good with English. His English was so, we didn't have to talk Russian.
Okay.
Although I tried, we would work on speaking together. Fyodor's English was probably as good as my Russian. And so we would have conversations at dinner because we always ate dinner in the Russian segment. That's where the food prep area was.
Okay, the Russian segment. Explain the American segment.
Well, basically the space station is divided back then it was divided into 2 halves, a U.S. half and a Russian.
Now, give us an idea of the square footage of the space station.
Let's see, back then it was a 3-bedroom house with 1 bathroom and 1 little kitchen prep area. Today it's a 4-bedroom house with 2 bathrooms and 2 kitchen prep areas.
Okay.
So, and you can't talk area because you have to talk volume. So if you look at this room we're in, we could be all on the ceiling. And it gives us a lot more free space.
All right.
And so.
You like that, Matt?
I love that. Yeah. Nobody thinks volume. Everyone thinks square footage.
Square footage, right? And if you're in an airplane, that's even more critical, right? Is what you have above you helps some people not feel like they're
claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we would have good times. We had every meal together. We had our coffee breaks together. We talked about our kids. I tried to get them to talk about Vladimir Putin, but they wouldn't speak on him.
No Moss, huh?
No Moss. And
were they worried they were being recorded?
Yes, or that they would say something that would get them in trouble, and that the American might go blab.
Sure.
But they asked me about. I think George Bush was president back then, and so I would tell him what I thought. If I thought he was doing something good, I'd say so. If I thought he was doing something bad, I'd tell him that.
That's our ability to have free speech. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Free speech,
boys. And I didn't care. And then they would rarely bark at the ground. One time Theodore did, which I thought was pretty cool because I felt like I had a little influence on him. Because they make you do stupid ass stuff. I mean, it's like you guys were here in this room with all this equipment, right? And if you called up, you're the ground, and you said, Clay, I want you to go over to the back table and I want you to pick up that turntable and I want you to move it to the bath. Okay. So I'd do that, right? And then a couple days later, they'd call and they'd say, hey, Clay, you remember that turntable you put in the bathroom? Yeah, I remember. Can you go grab it and move it to the kitchen and put it in the lower shelf on the right below the sink? Why? Well, we just need you to do that for us. Okay. And then a few days later, they'd say, hey, can you grab the turntable? Yeah. And where do you want it now? Well, we want you to put it back where it was when you first.
A week ago.
Yeah. And that's stupid, right? And
that's make work.
Well, it's not just make work, it's stupid make work. Because as a non-flown astronaut, one of my jobs before I flew was to be what they called a crew support astronaut for the guys that were the fourth crew on board the space station. So I was the 15th, they were the fourth. And I went to meetings every week. And the meeting was the 2-week planning meeting. So we talked about what was going to happen over the next 2 weeks. And my job was to represent the crew and to ask questions and make sure things were clear and yada, 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 right? And I was pretty hard on, I said, hey, they need to know what you want them to do. And well, we want them to move that panel out of the way. Well, if you're going to move that panel, who else in this room needs them to do something when we take that panel off, right?
Yeah.
If I'm going to rip shingles off my roof, what else can I do underneath that roof before I have to put the shingles back? And they were horrible at that part. They were all horrible at that part. They just
2-week planning session.
They had their
forward plan.
They had their little, each one of them.
This is fascinating.
I know.
This is fascinating.
And this is what got me in trouble, because when I went to space, so as the Expedition 15 guy, I had 14 expeditions before me.
Sure.
And each crew writes a crew report.
Okay.
And in the crew report are squawks.
Let's say they're squawks.
Right? Things that need to be fixed.
Need to be fixed. Didn't go right.
I took every one of those reports with me to space, and I read the squawks every month. All 14 of them, I read them every month.
Oh boy!
So that they were fresh in my mind.
Right.
So that if I saw one, I could remind them, hey, this is an Expedition 3 crew squawk, and we haven't fixed it yet, and that's Expedition 15. Don't you think we should fix it
this time?
Right?
Yeah.
And they don't like that.
So I'm getting the sense. I guess.
It sounds almost adversarial.
Well, it can be. And there are other astronauts that were more like me. There are a lot of them that aren't like me. But if you go back to Skylab, they had issues like this.
Right.
And then we had a couple earlier astronauts on space station where we had issues like this. But the nice thing about my argument was that it eventually created a database of all crew squawks.
Right.
And they got placed in a database, and they had start date and end date, and who's responsible,
and who worked on it, and what parts
and
were
so
replaced.
They started to check them off when they got them fixed. So I at least had impact to get them
for
to
some
think
accountability.
So the team. So you have your ground crew, your engineers, and space center, and you had the astronauts who are flying the vessel.
Right.
Who's in charge?
The flight director, who's in mission control. So each expedition has a lead flight director.
Okay.
My lead flight director was a brilliant guy, great guy, but he was more inclined to support his control team, his ground control team, than he was to support astronauts.
Well, you're up in the goddamn air, like I said.
Yeah, I know, but that's I'm just telling you how it was for me. Now, other astronauts would probably say Clay's full of shit. Oop. FCC violation, my bad. But anyway,
they were not the first language.
They would probably say, well, Clay was a whiner, Clay was a problem child, and that's okay. But my mantra was, I was up there to make it better for the guys that came after me. I mean, if you think about it now, they're on Expedition 75.
Wow.
75, and I was 15.
Wow. So were they crews of 4?
They were crews of 3 at the start. And then when Columbia happened, they went to crews of 2 for a period. Then they went back to crews of 3. Now they're at crews of 4 to 6. And so the original space station idea was that you'd have a crew of 3 to 4 for 2 to 4 months.
Okay.
But now you can't really learn about how the human body adapts to space if you're not there for a long time. So now they're pushing people to be there for 280 days, 300 days, they're pushing that envelope so that people stay, because it's truly long duration. And if you're going to travel to to Mars, and it's going to take you 6 to 9 months to get to Mars,
Right.
6 to 9 months to come home. So you got to stay there for 6 to 9, right? That truly is long duration. So how does the human body deal with that? Well, we don't really know unless we start to keep humans in space longer. And so they've had several